I am writing for the cowboy. Many good ranchers and rich oil men, I love them all. I do. And if they like being around cowboys, that's fine. But when I write the story, I'm aiming at the guy that's working for them, because that's me. Rudy, lo siento, y usted no puede ir.
It started with milking the cow and feeding the chickens on his parents' place.
When we went out to feed the chickens, we had this mean old rooster.
Seems all things agricultural were in his blood from the start. His first foray into poetry came years later in a college class.
And I wrote this poem, and it was I know it had a religious point to it, but it came back from the English teacher, and at the top, and then they had those old red wax pencils, had a big red wax circle with an F in it. And the teacher had written, "Write about what you know."
Well, he knew hard work and he knew cowboys, and over time he went on to write about what he knew.
Cowboy poetry is about wrecks. Horse wrecks, dog wrecks, cow wrecks, ship wrecks, financial wrecks. And that's, I guess, my place in life too.
His most recent effort is called Lessons from a Desperado Poet.
I dedicated this poem to a friend of mine who fell while sitting on a mule's neck backwards and broke his back. So I wrote this for him, but it applies to a lot of people who lose their mind sometimes. It's called Living on the Edge. There, but for a whim of fate, go you and I. Any man who chases lightning or thinks that he can fly. Are we stupid? Are we crazy? Are we rebels without cause? No, the reason is much simpler. We bet the pot because the drummer who keeps time for us stays just beyond the ledge, and one only hears his cadence when one's living on the edge. You'll never know just how much I love you. You'll never know just how much I care. I've got blood center. I've had a heart stent done, and so when you get in that brush, sometimes you come out and look like you've been in a sword fight.
Baxter Black, the prolific poet and humorist to folks of the country and Western persuasion. Farmers, ranchers, cowboys, and those who wish they were one. As to being a cowboy, Baxter says it's not something you decide. You either are one or you aren't.
Listen, we got thunder. It means we're going to have lightning and it's going to rain. And I'm going to get to watch it.
When he's not writing poetry and reading to his listeners, he rides alongside his longtime friend and ranch hand, Francisco. And if you ride long enough, you're bound to get bucked off.
I did get bucked off. And it was a horse that I had been riding for a year. And the first two leaps, I was in the leaves, in the branches. And then we came out of there, but I had one rein in my hand. And I just let flat on my back. But I still had a hold of the rein. I was proud of that. Francisco said, "It looked like a rodeo." You know, you got to be able to take a fall. Financially, if you get your heart broken, you got to get up and keep going. If you lose your job, you got to get up and get back on a horse. Stupid as it may sound. Listo, Francisco. Sígame.
Baxter Black, now 70, says his poetry is born out of life experience, his own and those he's come to know.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear that thunder? Voila!
He grew up and lived most of his life in places where it doesn't rain. He's called Arizona home since 1997.
So I live in a grand part of the world, and one of the things that lured me here, if I could call it that, was I made the mistake of driving through this for the first time in August. and it was verdant and green. And I thought, my gosh, it's like the jungle here. I think I could do this.
Sure enough, he's written a poem about rain.
It's called Feast or Famine. In Feast or Famine, at least examine the game we came to play. 'Cause win or lose, it's how you use the cards that come your way. Just let her rain, the rancher said. I've built up quite a thirst. I know the low road's plumb washed out, the tank dam's bound to burst. We'll have to plant the wheat again and clean the water gaps. But you won't hear this fool complain if it reaches to my shafts. The truth is, friends, we've needed this. We've been so dry so long, I thought we'd have to sell the cows and pay the piper's song. The winter grass just lay there stiff. For months it never changed. I'd walk out through the crackling brown that covered all my range and watch the wind blow dust clouds where good grass should have been. I'd count the bales in the stack and calculate again the days of feeding I had left before I'd have to face the ultimate decision, what I'd do to save the place. The weatherman was helpful, except he always told the truth. Piddling chance of 10% meant it just rained in Duluth. And that's, keep her coming, baby. That's nice for Minnesota, but it don't help me a bit. I gave up chewing Red Man so I wouldn't have to spit. But he said last night, a chance of rain, more than just a trace. I washed the car and left the windows open just in case. And sure enough, this morning, big old clouds come rolling in, and they parked above the driveway, and the thunder made a din that rattled all the windows in the house where I sat still. And at 2, it started raining, and I still ain't got my fill. It's coming down in buckets, like it's paying back a debt, and me, I'm standing in the front yard in my shorts and soaking wet. When the sun comes out tomorrow and sparkles all around off pools and puddles standing like big diamonds in the ground, I remember feast and famine, but when it comes to rain, you take the feast when offered if you live out on the plains.